BizUp's Women Group and Conference. In BizUp's Women Group, we support and promote women. One of the main focus for us is the public speaking. You cannot be seen if you cannot be heard. Our next presenter is definitely a pro. She is a veteran of Dynamics 365 and CRM space, and she is a part of BizUp's Women Leadership Group. She is here to share some presentation tips with us to help you to not lose your audience, as she did early in her speaking career. Gill has worked with hundreds of people as Dynamics 365 trainer, and more recently has been district leader in Toastmasters. Surprisingly, her first degree wasn't with technology, but experimental pathology. My name is Elena Grushenko. I'm a BizUp's MVP and lead of BizUp's Women Group. Please help me to welcome UCRM Success Catalyst, Gill Walker.
Welcome, and thank you for coming. I vividly remember one of the earliest times I was asked to present. And after the event, I asked some close friends for feedback. And all I got was, there was a lot of information. What we're going to do over the next hour and a bit is show you a process. There are lots and lots of similar-ish processes. This is one that works, and it will work for beginners. And if you apply this process to your technical expertise, and then of course take it to the next steps, you will have a presentation about whatever your technical expertise is that will not leave your audience thinking, well, he or she knows a lot, I could never be that good, which is not a good feeling. As Alina said, I'm one of the leaders of the Women's BizUp groups with Alina, with Amy and Karen, who will be supporting me this afternoon. We are intending running more of these presentation skills workshops through the BizUp's group. So if this is something that appeals to you, that you would like to do more of, please do get in touch. What we are going to do today is work on your tech talk. And you'll be working in small groups so that you can get some feedback. And whether that's from a colleague or somebody that you just happen to be sitting next to, in front of, behind, really doesn't matter. But you will be working and helping a neighbour or a colleague as well on your tech talk. The three of us who are running the workshop, so that is Karen, Amy, Alina, and of course me, we will guide you through those key skills. And as we work through them, you will be using a workbook. I hope that this workbook will form a useful resource for you as an aide-memoire later on when you're working either further on this tech talk or on another tech talk that you may do in the future. The first question that I believe everybody should answer when putting together a tech talk is why has this audience, i.e. the audience that you will be speaking to, given up their time and less so their money to come to your presentation? Time is more valuable than money. And this also keeps you grounded if you think, well, it's a free event, it's a meetup, I'm not getting paid. All of that is often true in the speaking world. regardless of whether you are getting paid, regardless of whether the audience has paid to come to your talk, they have all given up a chunk of their time, and that time is something that they could be spending with their family, with their kids, walking the dog, re-sticking their stamps into their stamp album, whatever it might be. That's not your problem. The point is, they have given up half a day to come to your presentation. Even if you're only doing a half-hour presentation, your audience members have given up more than half an hour. They had to get there. How long did that take? They've got to get home. How long will that take? And so on. So always think about the audience. It is not about you. You're not up on that stage because you are the best whatever. You are there because you've got something to share with that audience, and something that each member of that audience has given up their valuable time and maybe some hard-earned cash in order to come. So now, acknowledging that anybody who is in ICC today and yesterday has got some technical expertise. You might not have been asked that at the door, but I think it's a fair bet. So whatever that technical expertise is, your successful tech talk sits within that expertise. But your expertise is not everything. As well as that, you need to have enthusiasm for the topic. Enthusiasm or passion for your topic. And thirdly, there needs to be interest. But that is not your interest. That is their interest. It is that interest that persuades them to give up their time and maybe money to come to your talk. So your successful tech talk sits where that red dot is, at the intersection of your expertise, passion, and interest. I'm going to take it as read that if you're giving a presentation on anything, you've got the expertise. If there is no interest, what that means is you're giving a great talk fundamentally to an empty room. If there is no passion, you've got people there and fundamentally they will be bored rigid. If there's no expertise, well, really, go home, because you shouldn't be there. So the first step of putting together a successful tech talk within the expertise, passion, and interest is identify your expertise. Within that whole array of topics that you could talk about, what is the one topic where you have in-depth expertise that has value to share with the audience? And we're going to be thinking about that in a bit more depth later on. Once you've identified the main topic, you then need to take that to the next level and work out within that topic what are 3 areas on which you can speak. Limit it to 3. and then work on developing those areas. For example, my deep expertise is Dynamics 365 CE. As Alina said at the beginning, I've been playing with Dynamics 365, not that it was called Dynamics 365, it was Microsoft CRM. I've been playing with that software since 2002. I first cut my teeth on 1.0 beta. But nevertheless, I don't try and speak on the whole of Dynamics 365. I've identified 3 areas where I have got passion and interest. There is a need in the market and I have the expertise. And in my case, it is user adoption, successful CRM, and user acceptance testing. And when you're doing this, put yourself in the audience's shoes. Like we've got in this picture, those shoes may be a little bit uncomfortable. You don't wear them all that often, and walking in them may be a little bit difficult, but you still need to wear them. So I'm now going to ask the people to give out these workbooks, and on page 2, I'm going to ask you to work through so that you can identify the 3 topics where you have expertise, enthusiasm, and there is audience interest. And we will give you 10 minutes to do that. So it's page 2, not page 3, page 2. Amy, can I have one, please? I would, not to fill it in. So we're looking for this page when beginning to develop a tech talk. You will have noticed that we quite specifically asked you to find 3 topics. This is because it's been well proven that human beings, the human brain, can cope with 3 areas. If you start doing 103, and yes, Dynamics 365, SQL Server, SharePoint, I am sure those of you who have got expertise in those areas, and whatever your expertise is, could find 33 or even 103 subtopics. That's fine as a brainstorming session, but then go back and identify the 3 where you have got expertise, passion, and there is audience interest. they are the ones that you want to work on. So the next step, once you have done your first breakdown into 3, is to choose one of those topics. And within that one that you choose, and the one that you choose should be the one that has probably got the most market interest. And I know it's difficult to evaluate, but particularly if you've got to sell the presentation that you're giving, and in many ways you've always got to sell it. Even when it's free, you're still selling it because people have to choose to come to the presentation rather than any of the other things they could do with that time in their life. So you now choose one of those 3 topics. And within that one topic, work out the 3 key points. And again, I'm going to give you an example from my world. So user adoption was one of my topics. So that now has moved up, and I've developed that into benefit of CRM to the user, the importance of including user data, and the importance of end user training. So there's 3 points that I could talk to as part of an overall presentation on user adoption. And then within those 3 points, you need to rank them. So which is the most important, the next, and the least important. So now I'd like you to go back and have a look at page 3 of your workbook. And on page 3, you will be developing your one topic and finding the 3 points. And again, work with a colleague, a neighbour, the person behind you, the person in front of you. foundation of your tech talk. So I'm now going to move on and look at format. Now, any of you are thinking that my topic doesn't need to be made bold or coloured red. You are barking up completely the wrong tree. Format is spelt as it is there, and it is a psychological approach first developed by an American called Bernice McCarthy. And if you apply format to both an entire presentation and a segment within it, and you do it properly, your audience will understand more and will retain more. And again, this comes back to why has that audience or each member of that audience given up their time to come to your presentation. They probably didn't do it to get a gold star for going to the meetup group. They did it because there was something in that topic that they felt was of benefit to them. So you owe it to your audience to structure what you're talking about in a way that is easy for them to absorb and retain. And format, as you might expect from the name, is divided into 4 areas. So we always start with why. Why is what you are talking about important? Not to you. Why is what you are talking about important to your audience? Then we go on and say what we are talking about. Then we move through to how. So how do you do whatever? And all of this does get a little bit challenging when we haven't got a specific. And the final quadrant, what if, what else, we tend to cover things along the lines of, what if you don't do this? What if it goes wrong? In a very short presentation, you will focus only on the why and the what. You allude to the how. And that, of course, is also a sales technique. You get them to the point that they want to know how to do what you're doing. And that, of course, is part 2. Come back next week or next month or whatever is appropriate, and then I will show you how. Format is a massive, massive topic. And those of you that have done any psychology or DISC or personality profiling, you can also read how that maps onto different personality types, different learning types. I'm not going to go into any of that, much as it does fascinate me. I just wanted to introduce it to you and give you enough so if it does appeal to you, if you go and search for either format, spelt like that, or Bernice McCarthy, who is the person behind it, you will find literally millions of references and papers and so on. And as with everything, some are extremely good, some are less good, but there is some very good stuff out there. So I'm now going to go on and show you how to structure your talk. You've got as far in the workbook as identifying the 3 points under your main topic. So how do we string those together? I'm about to give you the answer. So this is the structure of a tech talk. Start with an introduction. Then you go on to your point one. You then bridge from point one to point two. You bridge from point two to point three. And finally, you have a conclusion. And I'm also going to give you a little bit of information about what should be in each of those segments. So your introduction, what is my topic? Why, that wonderful word why, is this topic important to you, the audience? And why is it important now? And thirdly, why, from the audience perspective, are you the best person to deliver this topic? All about the audience. Then we move on to point one. What is point one? And point one is the second most important point of the three that you identified. That was why in the previous exercise we got you to rank them. You open with the second most important. And the reason you open with the second most important is so that you can end with the most important. Because that is the one that you want them to remember. That is the one that they need to take away. If they're only going to remember one point of what you made, of the three that you identified when you were working a few minutes ago, which one is it? The bridging story, a very nice way to do it, particularly if you're giving a technical talk, is to do a short customer story or case study or a short demo. That also helps because when you're doing a demo, you're also what we call changing modality. So it's a fair bet that your introduction and point one was largely you talking. Yes, supported by some slides, but if when you get to that bridging story, you can change modality with a customer story or a demo, maybe a video, you've got lots of options, but try and do something that is not just you talking. You might choose to have a workbook or throw some questions out to the audience. But if you're going to do that, you do need to remember that your audience has only heard point one and the introduction. So you can't throw stuff out to the audience that needs them to know point two or point three, because right now they don't. Later on they will, but right now they don't. Does that make sense? And then, of course, we move right to the end and with the conclusion, which is the real take-home message. But that needs to be more of an umbrella take-home message. It is bigger than point three. It needs to really sit across everything that you've talked about. You will notice that I've been nice to you, and on the second to back page of your workbook, you have got a version of this slide. I'm now going to quickly give you some hints about timing. And this is assuming you are putting together a 30-minute presentation. So what is commonly used at user groups and meetups and that sort of event. So we've got 30 minutes total. So you've got 5 lots of 5 minutes there, and your bridging components are shorter. Now, this is by no means absolute. This is a guideline. But if you were to use this for a user group or a meetup type presentation, you wouldn't go hugely wrong. If you are writing it out, it's also worth remembering that people can speak at roughly 100 words a minute. Now, there will be people out there that say, I've heard different numbers, and no doubt you have. When you're in a conversation, typically that number is roughly 130, 140. But when you're up here with a large number of people, a range of expertise, and what we don't know, I don't know it about you people, and you don't know it about your audience, but some of those people may have hearing issues, they may have visual issues, whole range of other things. So if you keep your speed down to a bit slower than you would talk to your friends, to your colleagues, to your kids, you're doing a favor to your audience. And as we said at the beginning, this is all about the audience. It's not you, it's them. So if we take that 100 words a minute, you will get, your introduction needs to be roughly 500 words long, and so on. And then just to give you some further information, if you're typing using what I would call a sort of a normal font and a normal font size, and you're splitting it into paragraphs and so on, that will be, that 500 words is roughly one side of A4. So does that make sense to people? So now I've given you all of that, it is time for you to go and finalize the detail of your tech talk. So if you now work through pages 4 and 5, and you will start fleshing out the 3 points that you developed in the previous page of the workbook. And I also will come down and will take questions. Okay, we now need to move on and wrap up this tech talk that you've been working on. So the next, and note that we didn't do this at the beginning, and this was not an accident. Having worked through the 3 points that you're going to talk on, and the 3 sub-points within that, each of those 3, and given a little bit of thought to images, pictures, diagrams, and so on that you might use to support each of those topics, only then do you move on and start to think about the title of your tech talk. When you're thinking about the title, remember that when a potential audience member is making the decision about whether they should go to your talk or walk the dog or work late at the office or whatever the other alternatives in their life happen to be, it might only be the title that they've got to go on. Even if you're actually developing what I will call a poster, it's the title that needs to grab them and then invite them or encourage them to read whatever else you may put on that poster, and then of course to come along to the event and listen to whatever you've got to say. So the title needs to be memorable, intriguing, and inviting. So I'm now going to give you a couple of examples of topics that I have spoken on. And I'm going to give you some bad and some good titles that I have used. So for example, getting the most out of CRM data, or managing Dynamics 365 security, compared to taming the beast of CRM data, or security is the chief enemy of mortals. I think you'd agree that those two are far more likely to get you to give up your time rather than understanding CRM data or whatever I had earlier on. So now move to the final part of the workbook and start thinking about a title for your tech talk. And your title wants to be something much closer to security is the chief enemy of mortals rather than understanding Power App security.